We're just sick and tired of it. Sick and tired of seeing these ancient hatreds spilling out onto our streets.
Pete, I'm an Australian and I want to channel what a lot of regular Australians are thinking out there. And we're just sick and tired of seeing these ancient hatreds spill out onto our streets. This is Australia. All of us who are citizens have obligations to our country, to our values, and we don't want to see these hatreds imported to our country. So if people want to contest this stuff, that's great. You can do it in the Middle East, but not here on our iconic Harbour Bridge. Yeah.
This said the man, the sick and tired man, shaping up to be Australia's next leader, or at least the leader of the opposition, a man who wants to take us to China, to war with China, a US war against China, and who is just completely captured by the Israel lobby. Yes, this whinging and whining went on all week in the wake of the massive Sydney Harbour Bridge protest march and other marches around the country, like the NAM protest in Melbourne. People protesting war crimes, people protesting children, amputees, the greatest amount of children amputees in history, in recorded history. Absolute, inexorable acts of barbarism, the global rules-based order. Sick and tired of it, said Andrew, Pauline Hanson, Jane Hume, the whole AJA, the Zionist lobby and so on. That was their line. Hate-filled terror marches was their line. Hate-filled terror marches. These people stumping for the government of Benjamin Netanyahu. These people captured, or otherwise too stupid to know they've been captured. Lambasting peace protesters, saying they're aligned with Hamas and doing Hamas's bidding. All this nonsense. Peace protesters. And the noise, Sky News every night, gibbering about it. The nut jobs on Sky News, the pundits in Rupert Murdoch's masthead, The Israelian, all week on the same page, carrying on about how bad the protesters were. It went all week. This was last Sunday the march happened. Well, you know what? We're tired. Everybody, ordinary Australians, the majority of them that are smart enough to know what's going on, they're tired. We're tired. We're sick and tired, Andrew Hastie, of this kind of nonsense from people like yourself, patsies for the genocide lobby. We're sick and tired of the countless murders, amputated children, at least 60,000 dead on the lowest estimates, probably 200. The Harvard estimates is more than 200. We're sick and tired of watching on social media every morning children, men and women being gunned down at US-Israeli food aid distribution points. The Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, how Orwellian is that? We're sick and tired of this violence every day, this bloodshed with no plan except to make it such a terrifying ordeal for these poor people of Gaza that they're forced to leave somehow so Israel can steal more land. And it's patsies in Australia, like Hastie, Hanson, the Liberal Party, a lot of them in Labor. They can just go along for the ride. Yep, we're sick and tired of it already. We're sick and tired. We're sick and tired of the incessant lies by the Israel lobby, like there is no program of starvation. No, it was all Hamas's fault. The latest from Netanyahu today, the latest lie. Pictures of Gaza flattened. The whole of it, 80-90% of it destroyed. That was Hamas booby-trapping the buildings, says Netanyahu, as if we couldn't see the devastating response of the aerial bombardment using parts supplied, F-35 aircraft parts supplied by Australia to feed this killing machine. Yes, we're sick and tired of it. Sick and tired of the endless words of justification from politicians. The fact there is no plan, the fact Israel has been beaten, Hamas might not have won, but Israel is destroying itself in the process. The good Jewish people who marched, many of them on the weekend. That's what we think, that's what they think. Yet Andrew Hastie wants to pack us off to the Middle East. That's where the protesters should go, to the Middle East, despite the fact that we're captured by the Israel lobby here, which has changed the laws of Australia, which has brought in anti-vilification laws in order to control free speech. And the politicians rabbiting on about it in Parliament all the time, wasting all that parliamentary time on behalf of a foreign war lobby. Yeah, we're sick of that, Hastie. We're sick and tired of that. Why would you go to the Middle East? It's happening here. It's ruining the fabric of Australian society because you guys are too gutless to stand up to the Zionist lobby. We're sick and tired of it. Here says Andrew, if they want to protest, they can go and do it in the Middle East. Why don't you go to the Middle East? Go and join the government of Israel, because that's why, effectively you're acting for them. You're pro-genocide. All of you people in politics, elected citizens of Australia, you're pro-genocide. You have no answer. The answer is a ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire, a political resolution, not just killing more people. Surely you know that. Why don't you go to the Middle East? In defence of Andrew was just one of many this week taking to the airwaves to justify genocide, war crimes. Just another patsy for the Israel lobby. Another politician or media figure championing Israel at the expense of Australia. Now, we were there on this march personally. It was a good vibe. This supposed Hamas terrorist march, as the AJA called it. No doubt that's the way that Andrew and all his fellow acolytes are framing it too. A march in support of terrorism. What a lot of rubbish, nonsense is that. There were people of all colours, ages, demographics, people carrying North Shore Golf Club umbrellas and Audi and Mercedes umbrellas, as well as ordinary Australian families with their children, some even with animals. Hundreds of thousands of people got out in the rain. It rained all day and it was peaceful. There was not one incident, despite a long holder, but the police told everybody to either turn back or to stay where they were. Were they waiting for an incident to occur? And then, of course, the photo ops, which went around the world, with some guy standing there with a poster of the Ayatollah Khomeini, as if that was what these people were marching about. And that was the one they chose for their propaganda purposes. The Zionist lobby, we don't even know whether it's a photo op or whether this guy just jumped into the thing with his little sign behind Assange and Kostakidis and these people, but that was the photo the media chose to send around the world. Absolute disgrace. Although the coverage is turning. I watched the 9 News coverage later on, and actually it was very good. They told the truth. They pulled no punches. But of course, the propaganda war proceeded apace. Proceeded, indeed, all week. Yep. And we're sick and tired too of the Zionist lobby, the Israel lobby, dragging Australians into court who oppose genocide and call for ceasefire in the Middle East. We oppose the bullying. This week, there were another 2 people dragged into court in New South Wales. A couple of academics, Nick Reimer and John Keane. John is a professor I've worked with in the past, a man of impeccable integrity, very smart guy, good guy, not an anti-Semite, and they're dragging him in for vilification and hate speech. They're just having a crack. The Zionist Federation of Australia. This group of people who are subsidised, heavily subsidised by Australian taxpayers, with all the handouts, the tax-free exempt status, the charity status, the not-for-profit status. They are subsidised by the public to act on behalf of the interests of a foreign government. The ABC, the Antoinette Lattouf doxing, that ended up in court. John Keane and Nick Reimer now. And of course, there's Mary Kostakidis, the former SBS newsreader. Mary, who is not an anti-Semite, but they just want to pick people off, to browbeat them, to make sure that they muzzle dissent. That is the game plan. They are using Australian money, public money, these lobby groups, acting on behalf of a foreign government engaged in genocide and apartheid to muzzle dissent in Australia, dragging people into the courts. Who pays for the courts? We pay for the courts. That's who pays for the courts. What a farce it is. I hope the judges just throw this stuff out. The judges have been good so far. Thank goodness we've got an independent judiciary. So millions in public costs funding this stuff, these actions on behalf of a foreign lobby. And the latest is, of course, what they're trying to do is implement the IRA definition of anti-Semitism so that Australians won't be able to criticise Israel, the actions of a foreign government. That's what the IRA definition means. And so the latest is, and you can check it out on Michael West Media on our website this week, a great story by Wendy Bacon, the veteran journalist, and Yaakov Aharon. They investigated the big shindig, which is just about to take place, or I think it's September actually, on the Gold Coast. It's a conference by a mob called CAM. I think it's Combat Anti-Semitism. It's one of these other lobby groups, no doubt, charity status. You know what they're doing? They're getting as many mayors and local councillors from across the country as they can. Gillian Siegel's involved, of course, the Israel lobbyist and envoy for anti-Semitism. They're inviting all these local government people to a junket on the Gold Coast to grease them. Is your councillor going? Why don't you find out? Why don't you write a letter to say, are we subsidising council resources involved in this Zionist endeavour on the Gold Coast? The campaign, Combat Anti-Semitism. They're doing it already, of course. Rhonda Garad, we broke the story about, the pressure on her. She's a Dandenong councillor, Dr. Rhonda Garad. They're doing it at all forms of government, browbeating politicians, using the carrot and the stick, and the fear of being called anti-Semitic, all in the interests of a foreign state engaged in the most egregious set of war crimes this century, engaged in the greatest number of child amputees in recorded history. Now, of course, they're doing it without anaesthetics and have been for many months. So there's a lot of other stuff this week. I mean, it's outrageous that the Labor government has let PwC back into the consultancy fold. PwC, the mob, the big four consultancy firm that gets millions and millions, hundreds of millions in government contracts. And then there was the inquiry and found that PwC had been advising foreign multinationals on how to rip off the Australian tax system, while at the same time advising the government on multinational tax avoidance laws. Double dealing. Treason. Treason's an offence anymore. And they're back on the consultancy. I mean, what do you have to do to lose your government gig? You can be involved in genocide. Look at Boston Consulting Group. I've done that one. You can be involved in stealing from the Australian public, even though they're giving you lavish contracts. So you can pay your partners millions of dollars a year. What do you have to do to get your comeuppance in this country? Good old Barbara Pocock, the senator, was outraged about it this week, and she was great in the inquiry, as she would have been. This is just farcical, really, getting PwC back in. There was a good one on the stock market too this week when TPG, which is a telecom company here, its share price dropped, 400 million or something. There was a huge ASX scare about it because somebody put out an announcement saying that TPG was going to buy a software company, but it was the wrong TPG. It's a bunch of private equity pirates, buccaneers, cufflink buccaneers called TPG too. So it's different from TPG Telecom, and the share price dropped $400 million. That was a bit of fun. And the other thing that's going on is the jockeying ahead of Jim Chalmers' big productivity summit coming up very shortly. So on the one side, we've got the business lobby making demands for their lower taxes, less red tape. On the other side, we've got, this is more or less quite simplistic, but we've got unions and civil society groups calling to abandon negative gearing and capital CGT discount relief, which basically two factors which have led to high inequality in Australia and housing unaffordability. They're no-brainers. We're going to do something in depth on this with our personal recommendations to what to do about productivity. Ramp up renewables for a start. That's a party waiting to happen, or right in progress at the moment. But the fact is, 20 years of laws benefiting wealthy investors and foreign investors over Australian first home buyers made this housing crisis. It's not about supply. Productivity will be a lot better if the government ensure that people have the right to social housing rather than sleeping in their car. Anyway, that's one. That'll be next week. It's coming up, the big summit. Oh, the papers are jockeying for position on that right now. Elsewhere, plenty of good stories coming up. We've got part 2 of the Gold Coast mayors and councillors anti-Semitism scam, the CAM scam, and much more to boot. Thank you so much for your support. Scam of the week goes to Andrew Hastie. Of course, he was not the only one, but look, he deserves one. He needs a debut scam of the week for saying stupid stuff. So come on down. Andrew Hastie, you have won Scam of the Week.